What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? John Middlekauff, 3 and Out podcast. How are we doing? Hopefully everyone's doing well. Make sure you subscribe to that podcast, 3 and Out feed. Go subscribe wherever you may listen to your podcast. Tuesday tends to be a slower day in the NFL, but you always can count on Jerry for calling into that radio show and saying some things to spice up a day when the players are off. The coaches are just in the lab game planning, and you got Jerry out there saying, we'll dive into it. And part of what makes his comments a big deal, they play this week on Sunday Night Football. Then there have been a lot of comments about the Cowboys against the 49ers, who have a quarterback that is under the microscope because he's such a polarizing player. And this is a big moment for him. So we'll dive into a little bit of those two teams. Tua says, I will not wear a Guardian cap and I'm coming back. I am not going to retire. I want my money and I want to play football. He didn't say I want my money, but by playing football, he gets his money no matter what. So a couple quick thoughts there, and Belichick, I got to give a standing ovation because I think he's coming into his own as a talking head. And sometimes you get nervous with a guy is only kind of renting the chair because he desperately, obviously, he wants to get back into coaching, but he's getting good at this because he's just speaking his mind. And sometimes you get nervous. We'll talk about Belichick, but we'll also have Josh Pate, who covers college football, the Josh Pate College Football Show on YouTube. He's crushing. He works CBS 24/7 Sports. He goes to all these games. He lives in Nashville, so he knows the SEC. He's from down there, and he's a fellow ball brother. We did an interview with him on Tuesday morning, so that'll come out a little later today, talking little cough on campus, talking a bunch of college football. So look for that as well. But before we dive into any football, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this podcast. Listen, do you want to go to a college football game? Do you want to go to an NFL game? The NBA is starting. Now, be careful. You got to make sure guys aren't load managing even this early in the season because Joel Embiid just sat out game 1. So you got to be careful when purchasing those tickets. But the World Series, I've been to the World Series. Watched San Francisco Giants win. A couple, actually. But it's incredible. So if you're a Dodger fan, if you're a Yankee fan, and you have the opportunity to go to one of those games, I cannot recommend it enough. Obviously, concerts. It's nothing like just working all week, just grinding, just working to pay the bills, make sure there's food on the table for the family, and realize, you know what, I got to do something for myself. I want to enjoy myself this Friday or Saturday and go to a concert. Take my wife, take my girlfriend, take my buddy, have a few cocktails, maybe a few beers, and just have a good time. Well, you can do it with me because my official ticketing app of this podcast, Game Time, you can take the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Okay, Cowboys, 49ers. I looked at the slate this morning of games for this upcoming weekend. Not a great week. It's not exactly a banner week. What last week was, at least on paper, turned out to be pretty good, right? Packers, Houston, obviously Detroit, Minnesota, Chiefs against the 49ers, and the night game. Like it was an entertaining week. And the college football couple games were really fun in Alabama, Texas, and Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Tennessee. I'd pump the brakes on the excitement this week. Not quite as good because people are always like, Middlekauff, you're hyping the Thursday night game. Well, I'm trying to psych myself in because I'm watching it and I got to talk about it for you guys. So I got to hype some games are better than others. And this week's, Eagles, Bengals, right? I mean, even the Monday night game is Steelers, Giants. Got to manipulate a little excitement. But the Cowboy-Niner game, even with their records, the Niners are 3-4, the Cowboys are 3-3. They both have been in shambles at different points in time in this season. Currently, both are in shambles. But here's the deal. Tuesday, typically in the NFL, I was thinking about this today because obviously Jerry went viral last week about saying he pays their salaries and he will get them fired. And he was just pissed off. And then even Diana Rossini asked him about it at the owners' meetings, and he didn't back down. Well, I got news for you. Usually, guys in their 80s that are super rich tend to be a little stubborn. I mean, I think that's a pretty consistent theme of really successful people who are old. They're usually not the first to go, yeah, screwed up there. My fault, guys. Or I'd like to have that back, even if they don't totally believe it, because sometimes it just makes it easier on everyone, right? Hell, any married guy, about to be, you live with people, wife, sometimes it's easy to just go, hey, I was wrong. Even if you truly don't believe it, but it just eases everything up. Jerry didn't do that today. And I was thinking about like dysfunctional teams. And obviously, the Jets right now are a headliner. Their owner is functioning as their GM. And unlike Jerry, he doesn't pretend to be a football guy. So he's just doing it because he's taking control from the team. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is also the GM. He's dictating everything that's going on. And as Belichick pointed out, that like when Saleh was there, they were good on defense. Now you remove Saleh, their defense is bad. So it's just a dysfunctional mess. And the Cowboys, especially the last couple of years, haven't been any different than they were under Jason Garrett or years previously. Like Jerry does whatever he wants. He speaks whenever he wants. He does radio hits whenever he wants. He gives his opinions. That's his prerogative. He owns the team. He signs the checks. But I think it's kind of getting to the point where I don't think you can function like this. And, I think Collins said this before and other people have as well. Does feel like we're headed down a little Al Davis, the latter part of his career in Oakland, that was just really kind of wacky. And, Jerry is going on and on about poorly designed plays today, about not executing blocks, and just ranting and raving about how shitty the team has been. And then he also talks about Derrick Henry not being able to sign them because of the cap issues. And listen, I do agree. Derrick Henry, if you put him on the Dallas Cowboys, would not be as good as Derrick Henry has been on the Baltimore Ravens. We're in agreement. Now, would it be an upgrade from what they had? 100%. Would I expect him to have the same production? I do not. But I don't think Jerry's crazy talk there. I do think it's fair when you make comments that we're all in and you have been close, at least it felt that way in the regular season, and then you just couldn't get over the top, that you would double down and try to make a run. But most families, like if you think about it, we all grow up a little different. How I was raised, how you were raised. Like there is no handbook on parenting. I don't have kids yet, but I'm sure I'm going to raise my children different than my brother, than you, than some of my cousins. But there are probably some non-negotiables to give your kids a chance to be successful in life, whether that's just like basic discipline, whether that is the morals and the ethics of treating everyone well, just some basic life skills that I think most people consistently have that raise, good kids that go on to be functioning members of society. It's kind of like a football team. Like there's not one specific way to do it, right? With Belichick and the Patriots forever, no one said anything. No one ever said a peep. And it was just everyone was walking on eggshells. And then you looked at Andy Reid and you looked at Pete Carroll, and it was a lot different environment in those. Same with the Packers, a little more laid back historically than the Patriots. And it all worked. Even the Giants, when they were really good under Tom Coughlin for a while and competing and winning Super Bowls, a little stiffer environment. So everyone's different, just like every home is different. But it is really, really difficult to overcome dysfunction. Like any kid or any person I ever meet that grew up in crazy dysfunction, it is way more impressive than anything I overcame. That, listen, was it perfect in my home? Two parents, never had to worry about food, forced me to do my homework. Like if I didn't succeed, it was on me, nobody else. Sometimes you meet people, you're like, damn, how did this guy, what an incredible story. And that, maybe looking back on the last couple of years with the Cowboys, it's like, it's really hard to overcome Jerry right now because he never shuts up. Like you would have thought this week, and I get it, like Jerry loves talking, Jerry loves doing media interviews. But after what happened last week, they did not play a game, right? He's like, you know what? I'm just going to take this week off. I'm not going to do a pod or not going to do a radio hit this week. We will reconvene after Sunday night's game and do it next week. There's nothing to talk about because look at what he's getting asked about. Derrick Henry and the Baltimore Ravens. So I am not a huge believer. Like I said, you got to be the Patriots and say nothing. But this would have been an easy week to make it easier on your team, who already, when they come back, is going to get peppered about questions from Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin, who are just shitting on the team. And then Jerry kind of doubles down and agrees with them. So he's basically just acknowledging my coach is a dead man walking, which we already knew because he was in a 1 year contract. And like I feel for Cowboy fans because clearly your team, especially when you're injured, you're not good enough. And two, your owner feels a little bit like a loon. And he's been really successful for the league, his vision with the marketing, but he feels kind of like this freelancing maverick that is really old and doesn't really know what he's doing anymore and is almost counterproductive to, in theory, the most important thing, which would be winning football games. But he might tell you just being a huge brand, that's really all that matters. And that's what it feels like he cares about more than football. And I just think you guys got to be ready because it could be a weird couple years. Now they're the Dallas Cowboys, and they go 8-9 or 7-10, and they fire Mike McCarthy. He wouldn't even be fired; he just wouldn't have a contract anymore. Contract not renewed. It would be fascinating because Belichick is the complete opposite, at least as a coach, not this version that we see on a weekly basis on television. Like he wouldn't want to deal with that. Now, I don't know. So I just think Jerry Jones has kind of feels like he's jumped the shark a little bit. And the conversation around Purdy, I think we can do two things. The Purdy's in this camp right now that Kirk Cousins was in when he was really young before he signed. And it was, I think people think more highly of Purdy than they did that Cousins. But you saw Dak in this early in his career. You honestly saw Russell Wilson in this his first couple years in the career. No one wants to acknowledge that he's any good. And every time that he has a really bad game, people go all in, which I understand. That's part of the business. I saw Joe Mazzulla talking about Tatum on a clip. It might have been a clip from the Netflix show, and he's like, "It's a privilege to be criticized." I'm like, that's a pretty sweet line because he's not totally wrong, right? It's a privilege to be criticized. No one's criticizing like Andy Dalton or Gardner Minshew right now. No one gives a shit, right? So I think the thing with Brock Purdy is this. He's going to have to play well in some of these big games this year, or it's going to get way louder. Because even last year, the talk was so stupid. It's like, guys, he makes $1 million. So, yeah, he has a bad game on Christmas against the Baltimore Ravens, one of the best statistical defenses we've ever seen. It's like a lot of guys have. Like, most guys don't play well in those moments, right? A lot of guys that are making $40, $50 million throughout the season didn't play well. But now it's like kind of getting down to nut cutting time because do you want to pay the guy $50 million a year? And I think that conversation is a lot different than the conversations previously had. Now, this notion that like, look what he's playing with, he can't make anything happen. Well, yeah, if he has to play at $50 million with a rookie wide receiver who just got shot, Ronnie Bell, who can't catch a cold and run a right route, Jacob Cowling, who Kyle Shanahan just doesn't like, and George Kittle, who Kyle like refuses to call plays for consistently, then yeah, it would be rocky. Just like it's rocky right now for Mahomes, who's playing with Worthy, who can play, and then a bunch of other random wide receivers. Right? You do need some talent on the field with you. Like Lamar Jackson ain't exactly throwing to me and you. He's a great player. Elite. He's a Hall of Famer. But you think it helps throw into a healthy Mark Andrews, likely Zay Flowers, Bateman, and having a Hall of Fame running back behind you? Probably helps. I mean, it just does. Now, you don't get a perfect team when you make a lot of money. And part of paying you a lot of money, in my opinion, is that when we get into shit, you can put us on your back. And there are only a few guys that can do that. So if you pay Purdy and it kind of keeps going up and down like this, I think we have to acknowledge he's probably not a put you on my back of the franchise and carry you for years. And I would agree with that as of right now. That it's not going to be a style. He is going to need help that most quarterbacks do, like I said. But the camp of guys he's in, the Goffs, the Daks, like they need help. Jalen Hurts, like Jalen looks fine when A.J. Brown and Devontae are out there. and more than functional. You remove those guys, he looks like the 24th best quarterback in the NFL. So there's pressure not just on Brock, but also on the organization. And I think these conversations, this stuff's fluid. And I just get back to, like, I have no clue how he's going to look. I would expect him to bounce back on Sunday night. One, the Cowboys defense is terrible. And two, he's consistently shown the mental fortitude to, like, not just play shitty football for a while. But my overall theme with this is, for any guy that we're not talking about an elite no-brainer player at any position, right? When you get the Justin Jeffersons, when you get the TJ Watts, when you get the Roquan Smiths, Fred Warners, whoever we're talking, it's like, yeah, just pay the guy. What are we talking about? This guy's elite. Like, this guy is the best player at his position, or best 2 or 3 players at his position. You just pull the trigger. You've seen it with some of the young left tackles. It's easy. When you get guys like him, like, I just need more information. And I always get back to, what's the rush? So if we end this season, and if I'm the Niners and you're 8-9 or 9-8, and it's been rocky and guys have been in that, I mean, Ayuk's gone. Ayuk's gone. Debo is questionable this week because he just got out of the hospital with pneumonia. McCaffrey ain't coming back this week. Though McCaffrey, like, the running game has not been their problem. But if it does get weird, you know what I'd say? Run it back another year. Play on the rookie contract. What's he going to do? Hold out? So I just think sometimes we got to take a deep breath. Not every good organizations don't just give you $180 million if they're not totally sold. And the more and more information you get, the more you either are sold or the more you have apprehension and are unsure. So I think this is a good learning process for Kyle in the front office about Brock Purdy, who obviously they really like and they believe in. But it's a production-based business. You're either getting it done or you're not. You're either proving it when the chips are down or you're not. And I'm fascinated to watch how it plays out. I expect him to bounce back this week, though. Does your favorite NBA player have what it takes to be crowned king of the court? Find out at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. DraftKings is offering $1 million a day in bonus bets for the first 10 days of the NBA season. That's $10 million in bonus bets. Here's how to shoot your shot. Opt in and get a daily NBA Profit Boost token. Pick a pregame NBA player prop to boost. If that player leads the league that night in points, plus rebounds, plus assists, you win a share of $1 million in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings app and use code JOHN. That's code JOHN to win a share of $1 million in bonus bets if your player is king of the court. Only on DraftKings. Crown is yours. Tua. My take was, when that happened, was when his last concussion in the fencing, is the NFL would step in and not allow him to play because they don't want that visual again. And it turns out that he went to a bunch of different doctors, I was reading today, and none of them said that he should consider retirement. And one, I think it would have been very difficult. This is an educated guess. I don't know the guy. But based on his previous actions and words, like, I would have been stunned if a week ago Tua just said, I'm retiring from the NFL. I'm out. We're good. It's not worth it. I think a very, very small people that played in the NFL, that talk about football, even fans with common sense, expected that to happen. I do wonder, though, because I can't imagine the NFL wants him to come back. Because the likelihood of it happening again, I think we have to acknowledge, how could you debate that it's not extremely high? Because he doesn't just get knocked out. He lays there with his arms pointing at the sky. It's happened multiple times. But the NFL couldn't force him. They're in business with the players. And the NFLPA, I think it's fair to say, would have, if they got involved, we'll sue you. And it would have got really messy. So maybe it was never going to be an opportunity for them to get involved if there wasn't one doctor who was adamant he was making the wrong decision. But he said he's not going to wear a Guardian cap. He's going to do it. Not surprised at all. I think it's easy for a lot of people that are 40, 50 to comment on what a young person should do. I don't even think it's unfair to have the opinion like, this is kind of crazy. because we all expect it to happen again. That's what's kind of sad, is it feels like he's not safe out there. And like there's a lot of money on the line. This is not a guy like I'm just doing it for the love of the game. You're talking $100+ million. I think it's like I think we did the math the night it happened. It's like close to $130 million if he just walked away. So I'm not saying this is strictly about the money, but you'd have to be naive to think that that doesn't have an impact. And like he loves playing football. Been playing football, I would imagine, since he was 5, 6, 7 years old. That's all he knows. And most people, all they know, ideally your job isn't dangerous. I saw this clip going viral about Aaron Boone on Instagram when they asked him what baseball means to him. And he says, it's my life. Beside my kids and my wife and my immediate family, that there's nothing in my faith, there's nothing more important. It's a family business. And it's all I know. The whole thing is kind of what makes me go. And that's true for a lot of players, especially in the NFL. Because, when you hear things about like, it's basketball, I think the thing with the NBA that they're really battling right now is it feels like, does everyone love playing basketball, or are you just doing it right now because these salaries are astronomical? It just doesn't feel to the common fan like people love playing in the NBA like they once did. And it's been bad for their product in terms of ratings. I think that's at a major because of the load management. It's like, what are we doing here? Where in football, you're either all in or you're not, especially a quarterback, because of the mental grind that it takes throughout the week, the preparation. Like, I'm not a big academia guy. Hated school. It wasn't really for me, despite having a couple degrees. But studying for tests is not fun. And for me personally, stuff that didn't really interest me, actually, some of it does kind of now, but at the time it did not. Like studying for an accounting test, I'd rather like jump off a bridge. So at least football players like what they're doing, but all they do throughout the week, the majority of it, like how many hours are they really on the field? 5.5 from Wednesday through Friday. The majority of it is in the film room, is taking notes, is sitting there with your coach, your offensive coordinator, and just grinding, preparing for the test. And they fucking love it. And like it's going to be really bad for the NFL if he lays there and the same thing happens again. But he chose this. No one's forcing him to do this. And last but not least, I got to give Belichick credit. All I want when a coach or a player goes into the talking into a mic, whether it's on TV, whether it's in radio, whether it's in podcast, YouTube, you name it, just give me what you really think. Because I've been around enough of these guys. We're all human beings. How do we all talk when we're just sitting in the backyard with a couple buddies with beers? Like it's just a real raw conversation. It's no different when coaches are talking to their buddies about players or other coaches or other personnel moves. It's raw and real. And then you get so many guys that go on TV, you're like, they're not saying anything. And Belichick, who historically said nothing, is really, he was on McAfee on Monday, as he is every week, and was asked about the Giants. And he's been crushing the Jets, which is probably easy because he's kind of been doing that for years anyway. So I don't give him too much credit on that one. That's kind of been his like shtick over the years, is hating the Jets. But everyone else, like the Giants organization, clearly means a lot to him. Won a couple Super Bowls there. Did a 30 for 30 there with Bill Parcells. And just take a listen to him on just the Saquon situation and his thoughts.
The Giants thing, I don't really understand. He was their best player. For a couple $1 million more, they could have kept him, I guess. Instead they got a guard or somebody, I don't know. The offensive line doesn't look very good. I mean, they're playing a guy at left tackle who shouldn't be playing left tackle. Evan Neal is drafted in the first round. He doesn't play. They have some UFA guards that are pretty suspect. It's a tough line. And honestly, I thought that, the quarterback is trying to hang in there. It's been tough sledding.
I think what's cool there is just his just disinterest on even giving any credit to any of these, like how big of a joke. Like he looks at these others, like UFA is an undrafted free agent. Like the guard you are playing is like a widget, and it's a worthless widget. And that's how coaches talk. And I honestly never thought we would get that. And listen, like we can argue till we're blue in the face. Should they have signed Saquon? Should we not have? We literally saw the owner of the team saying, this is not a great idea, and I don't want him to go to Philly. That's what he said to the GM. So it's like typically we're just giving our opinions and we argue about it. Like we can argue till we're blue in the face. We saw what it looked like from within the building. It was unprecedented access. And the owner wasn't just uncomfortable. He said he couldn't sleep if he went to the Eagles. Then the fucking guy goes to the Eagles. He rushes for $175. He gets caught on camera that they're like, hey, I think it was Sirianni went over to him and was like, hey, you're 13 yards short of your career high. He's like, I'm cool, man. Let the other dudes eat. Is literally what he said. So it's like Saquon gets double the credit. And I just think that these are the type moments when you got Belichick, who is just taking shot after shot at the general manager. And I don't know. I mean, I think the hard part about these moves, if you're an owner, like what are you going to do? Fire the GM, keep Dayball, bring in a new GM, and force Dayball on him. It just gets really out of whack really quick. So if you don't get fired Monday morning after that game, maybe you wonder if it's in the back of his head. He's going to do it when the season ends, when this team does not win many games. But all I hope is that Belichick just keeps, firing takes.